My name is Gil Summers, and I am one of the emergency response educators at the Life Support Learning Center. My background is I'm a nurse that used to work in the ED prior to 2006, and since then I've been working with the Life Support Learning Center as an emergency response coordinator, and I'm also a paramedic. We're here today to kind of talk about emergency equipment and some of the tools that we can provide you to help be prepared for that emergency. And I just want you to think about, what if I were to, all of a sudden ask you to take that new R-Series defibrillator and use it? How would that make you feel? I give you this defibrillator, and your patient's either needs to be cardioverted, or in this case, it looks like the patient's in VFib and to be defibrillated. How would that make you feel? Or in fact, your patient needed to be paced. Now how do you feel? Do you feel comfortable? Is this something that you could just do without thinking about it? Probably not. Think about what is going to happen to you inside. What do you get a little kind of feel a little short of breath, or do you get kind of hot and sweaty and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? It's not something you do every day. And so it can be a little bit daunting to be looking at this device that you may have only seen once or twice, maybe only once for an in-service, and then never touched it again. So looking at this, you're thinking, oh my goodness, right? So what is that called? What happens? What is that called when you kind of get a little short of breath, or you feel a little kind of hot and flushed? Anatomy 101, what is that called? Right, it's called fight or flight. It's a sympathetic response. And in your fight or flight, your part of your brain takes over your body. And then even though you might be the smartest person in the room, you just became kind of like the dumbest person in the room, because you can't think clearly, you're running or you're turning and fighting. In fact, it's the middle of the night and it's pitch dark. No moon, can't really see anything, but you got a nice bright flashlight. And all of a sudden the battery dies and you hear the leaves rustle behind you. What's your first reaction? Run or turn and fight. But you're not thinking clearly. Your body is taking over thought and clear thought. So that's something to consider as well. But let's just say I gave you this Alaris pump. Now how would you feel? Would you feel comfortable? Of course. You probably use it more often than you use the defibrillator. I'm thinking, yeah, most likely. So when you first came to UVA, and you've probably been in nursing now for about 3 months, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. And when you first came to UVA, you had to do a bunch of stuff on the computer, right? What was those? They were CBLs, computer-based learning. What did they make you? Did they make you competent? Are you shaking your head, yeah? No, they made you compliant, right? And you were compliant with hospital policy by completing a whole bunch of CBLs. And in some cases, you had to do hands-on return demonstration to a super user or an NEC who had been checked off to be able to check you off on the use of a piece of equipment in the hospital. So this Alaris pump is a good example. We'll contrast the Alaris pump to the Zoll defibrillator. Because you took a CBL and the Zoll defibrillator, you may have had some hands-on, but now look at the Alaris pump. I mean, how often do you use it? Once a month? You're probably giggling and shaking your head. Once a week? Many of the providers are telling me, man, we use them all day long. Yeah, so what is it that makes you feel comfortable? Because when you first got that Alaris pump and that nurse educator or that super user was standing over your shoulder going, here, I want you to infuse this, I bet you got a little bit flushed and kind of a little bit sweaty, and you can feel your heart beating a little bit. You were entering fight or flight. And you were doing it in a controlled way, but still, because you had somebody there who had your back. But the whole point is that now you're using it every day. And so if I gave you a medication that was going to help a patient, as opposed to giving you the defibrillator, and you go, oh, I'll take the Alaris pump any day because now you feel more comfortable. You're not going to enter a fight or flight response. Yeah, but the pump is not going to save somebody's life right now. The defibrillator, the pacemaker, cardioversion will save somebody's life right now. So what is it that you can do to practice more often with the defibrillator? So then what is it that causes this fight or flight response in you? What part of your brain can you recall the little piece that is the size of the tip of your fingernail that causes you to react in such a way that you forget important things and just blurt out or react without thinking about it? What is it that causes that? Because with the Alaris pump, you created something called muscle memory. So in an emergency, yeah, you could use the Alaris pump. But in an emergency, the R-series defibrillator all of a sudden becomes very difficult, and then you enter that fight or flight response. So what part of your brain captures you and makes you act in a way that you may not want to do, right? Like confused or scattered or chaos, right? So what is it that causes that? So that little tiny piece in your brain is called the amygdala. And the amygdala activates your fight or flight response and brings on a I'm going to run and hide or I'm going to stand and fight, but it doesn't make you act rational. It makes you act irrational. Think about a time when your wife, your husband, your brother, your sister, your mom and dad, your boyfriend or your girlfriend said something to you and you shouted something right back. And then you thought, ooh, I probably shouldn't have said that. Right? That's your amygdala capturing your brain and then not letting you have a good, thoughtful process to react emotionally, intelligently. Right? And when the amygdala captures you, things like chaos ensues, or you just kind of duck your head and you say, okay, I give up. I can't do this. But if I gave you the pump, you'd be fine. So how can we help you not be able to have chaos? What is it? I mean, there's two types of chaos if you think about it. There's chaos, people yelling and screaming and dropping stuff and having, difficulty operating a piece of equipment. And then there's organized chaos, right? To the untrained eye, it may look like chaos. But to you as a healthcare provider, you're thinking, wow, that really went well. So what is it that we can do to help you feel more comfortable when it comes to things like emergency equipment, the R-series defibrillator, code card, emergency procedures, etc.? So one of the ways to stay organized, as you can see in this picture, this is a nice organized desk, right? To be able to use a defibrillator or to be able to use the code card, the way you use the Alaris pump is to gain access to tools that you can use on a regular basis to create what we call muscle memory. And we're not going to take the R-series defibrillator and go, oh, man, by the way, I haven't used the defibrillator for like a couple weeks, and I thought maybe if I could just pace you or cardiovert you, I'd keep my skills up. I don't think that's really what we're looking for. What we're looking for is frequent tools to help you be able to practice without actually using the device on a patient, unless you have to, of course. So one of the things that I find to be very helpful is being able to use resources. Now, the Life Support Learning Center has many resources that you can use. One is the Zoll device training. So as you can see here on this slide, I've provided you with the Life Support Learning Center copy of a slide, basically the web page. Now the web page is an internet page. It's a public access page. It's not intranet, so you don't need to sign in. You can view it from any web server or device, Google or Firefox or Internet Explorer. All those devices, all you have to do is type in Life Support Learning Center and boom, you're there. No sign-in required. And there's plenty of resources for nursing, EMS, physicians to view the Zoll device videos so that you can practice more often, even if it's by watching videos. And I want you to think about videos for a second. Let's say you had to change the oil in your car and you never did it before. What would you do? Or, hey, in these times of social distancing, try to stay away from the grocery store. Maybe you wanted to bake your own bread or bake a cake and you haven't done that before. Okay, so what's a good way to figure that out? Yeah, YouTube. You go to YouTube, you find a video, you watch the video, and it says, oh, that's how I change the oil in my car. That's really easy. So all you would have to do is be able to obtain the supplies, whether you purchased them online or went to a local store, which may not be that great now, but you could get it online, and you could change your own oil. Well, the same rule applies with the Zoll Defibrillator, right? So what you could do is you can go to the Life Support Learning Center, click on Zoll Device Training. Once you click on Zoll Device Training, it takes you to another web page. And as you can see, the arrows pointing, click here for Zoll Device Training Materials. Once you've navigated to the Zoll Device Training Materials, on the bottom you will see an assortment of videos on how to use the Analyze/AED mode, how to use the Charge/Manual mode, how to pace, how to synchronize cardiovert, and those things, if you watch them, will actually help you. So here's a plan. And this is probably a good way for you to take a look at this material, and it only takes about 15 to 30 minutes a week. And I would plan or think about doing something like watching these out of your shift in a week number 1, in month number 1, and let's say we'll do this for 6 months. In month number 1, week number 1, you will go and look at these videos. It takes about 15 to 30 minutes, if that long. And I know you're busy as a nurse working in our hospital, very busy. We have sick patients. But everybody's got at least 15 minutes to make sure that they know how to use emergency equipment. And I want to remind you that this will save somebody's life. And if you feel comfortable with it, if you feel you have some knowledge to use, it will make you be able to perform with that device in a more organized, thoughtful way. So this is something you could do on week 1. Now on week 2, what you could do, and I want you to think about the code card. I mean, how often do you use a code card? Probably as often, if not less, than you use the R-Series defibrillator, right? So, and we're not just going to open code cards. And how often does an NEC or department educator or a super user have the chance to be able to bring you a training card? So here is someplace else that you can go and actually look at all the drawers of the code card and what the contents are to become familiar with them. Again, building muscle memory. So the first thing you would do is you would go to the Life Support Learning Center webpage, and on the right-hand side, you'll see Educational Resources. Once you click on Educational Resources, you'll see Code Card. Now, in the Educational Resource main page, you can see there's Code Card there, but it's also on the right side. So there's multiple ways to access the Code Card link. Once you have accessed the web page for the Code Card link, you can see that there's multiple buttons, tabs, that you can click on to view the code card, what the list of items are in the code card, what the drug box looks like, and the code card medication list. Now, the code card view is a kind of a set of pictures that show each drawer. So like, what is in drawer number 1? Well, that would be the medication box, the drug box, right? Do you know how the medications are arranged? Do you feel familiar with them? The very top section, mostly 2/3 of the medication drug box, are alphabetized. But the bottom section, a lot of people call code drugs, they're in Bristol-Jets. They're in preformed medications where you may have something like epinephrine 1 milligram in 1 in 10,000, which is 1 in 10 mLs, that you would use for somebody in cardiac arrest. But there's also dextrose, 25 grams and 50 mLs, and there's other medications there as well that are set up in Bristol-Jets. So we refer to the bottom quarter typically as code drugs. You can also look at what the second drawer is. The second drawer is things like needles and blood gas equipment and saline vials, water vials, just H2O, and some other things that you can access to get labs and do things to your patient. The third drawer down is things like bags of fluid, tubing, and a pressure bag. And here's something interesting. Using a pressure bag, what kind of tubing would you use? Do you just hook it on the pump tubing, the Alaris pump? That won't work. It'll cause damage to the pump tubing. There's restrictive devices, and it won't be able to get the fluid. So if a fluid, if a physician ordered 1 liter of fluid now, and you put it on the Alaris pump, the fastest you can give it is 999, which is in an hour. So you would need to switch out that tubing for surgical tubing, which in our hospital are 20 drop sets that have no restrictive devices. And therefore, the fluid would go in now, and you could hook a pressure bag to that. So knowing what's in the code cart will help you in an emergency. And by viewing this once a month, I mean, this would be done, code cart would be on week 2. If you did defibrillator on week 1 for 15 to 30 minutes, and you did the code cart week 2 for 15 to 30 minutes, and you did that for 6 months, you would start to build muscle memory and feel more comfortable with the items that are there for your use in an emergency response, whether it be the rapidly decompensating patient or a patient in cardiac arrest. Okay, so in conjunction, the tools that you can use every month, like week 2, you would review the code card. And week 3, you can pick something that you feel lacking in, like maybe it's rhythm interpretation. And we actually will have on our virtual education page a presentation on rhythm interpretation. Maybe it's some type of medication administration that's special for your unit. Or maybe it's just something else to do with like maybe COVID-19 response, and you want to learn about that. So week 1, you would do Zoll device videos and to review the device. Week 2, you would review the code cart. Week 3, let's say it's rhythm interpretation. Week 4, you can choose something else or take that week off. And then next month, month 2, you would go right back to the Zoll education and then the code cart and etc. And I almost guarantee that after 6 months of this constant review of only 15 minutes a week, maybe 30 minutes a week, you'll start to find yourself being able to respond much more proficiently with emergency devices and emergency interventions. All right, well, I want to thank you for listening to my lecture, and I hope you stay safe and have a great rest of your day.